Determined to win it all, week after week, the Birds soared through the playoffs. Two teams remain in the hunt for the ultimate trophy. Get ready. The road to the big game starts now.
Winning and success is defined by that particular individual, and it's all relative to the person. And what I define it as is winning. And I think the beautiful thing about this sport, about this team, is finding ways to win in multiple ways. Embrace what the group mission is, and the mission is to win.
Jalen Hurts after the Birds win the NFC Championship, the beautiful sight of green confetti inside the link. Welcome to Road to the Big Game. I'm Allie Berube, joined by Eagles Hall of Fame linebacker Seth Joyner. Seth, a 55-23 win to punch your ticket to Super Bowl 59, but also over a division rival in the Washington Commanders. It was a heck of a performance from the Birds to get back to the Super Bowl.
No doubt about it. And, you know, I'm very appreciative of the Eagles winning in such a fashion. That way I didn't have to eat crow this week. But just a dominant performance. And I felt like they would have a performance like this. I didn't really think that they could get to 55, but I was certain that they would win the game just because of the dynamics of how, you know, week 11 and week 16 actually played out. They lose Jalen Hurts and C.J. Gardner-Johnson in week 16, key pieces, you know, to the offense and the defense. But at the other end of the spectrum as well, the Eagles, what people don't realize, the Eagles had that game under control. They had it in hand before Jalen got hurt and then C.J. Gardner-Johnson went out. So I figured if you have them both back, they're full strength, they're both well motivated because of, you know, some of the chatter that went on after that Week 16 game. You're not coming in the link and beating us in the link, not for the NFC Championship game, certainly not.
They followed the Seth Joyner game plan to a T. Over the next 30 minutes here on Road to the Big Game, we'll break down the dominating win against the Commanders, plus look ahead to the big game in New Orleans where the Birds will avenge their Super Bowl loss to the Chiefs from just 2 seasons ago. But of course, let's start with that 32-point win because there was so much to make of it. Of course, you know, the Washington has that 18-play drive, get a field goal. 18 seconds later, Saquon Barkley finds the end zone. One play, that's all they needed to really set the tone in that one. And he continued that on. 3 rushing touchdowns for him, 118 yards. You got to start with Saquon in this one, I feel like, as you have all season. He's been a star for a reason, and he's showing up in the biggest moments.
Well, you know, listen, I said yesterday during a post-game show, it took Saquon 18 seconds, which it took the Commanders 18 plays to do, and 4 points more. Mm-hmm. You know, that's just phenomenal. The way that this guy's played all season long, he's been a godsend for this team. If there is any way for any of us to ever experience, you know, death and going to heaven, he certainly has to feel like that's where he's at this point in time, having been in New York all the time. He's been in New York and hasn't had success. And then to come here and play the way that he's played and be, you know, have his career resurrected, so to speak, and on his way to a Super Bowl in his first year. Listen, the guy is just phenomenal. He's a phenomenal athlete in phenomenal shape. He's a generational running back. But I also like to give Jalen Hurts a lot of credit, too, because I think we've heard this narrative that Jalen can't read defenses, that, you know, he can't pass the ball. We've talked about what he couldn't do. In the second half of that game, week 16, Saquon Barkley rushed for 27 yards. He averaged 1.7 yards per carry without Jalen Hurts in the game. That gives you some perspective on how important Jalen Hurts is. That's the first thing. The second thing is you got to understand Jalen Hurts is operating at the line of scrimmage. 85 to 90% of the plays that are called, Jalen is checking at the line of scrimmage. Now, if it was Josh Allen or if it was Patrick Mahomes, we would be talking about what a great field general he is. Let's give Jalen Hurts some credit for putting the team in the right play, making the right calls all the time, and being that piece that helps Saquon Barkley be as dominant as he is. And that's not taking anything away from Saquon.
That dynamic duo is so important here in 2024. Neither one of them should ever buy a drink in the city of Philadelphia themselves.
Well,
they've earned it.
Let's pump our brakes. If they win the Super Bowl, then we can, because that group from 2017, I promise you, anywhere they go in the city, everything's free. You got to win it. And this is Jalen's second rodeo. He's got to win it this time.
I think when you look at the way this team is building throughout the season, it feels like there's so many pieces that it's like, okay, that's now peaking. That's at the right point. When you look at the way the defense played, particularly the way they kind of caused havoc against the Commanders, the turnovers, Zach Bond playing lights out in this one, how much confidence does that give you? The offense clicking on all cylinders, but the defense is finding its opportunities as well.
Well, the biggest thing is they're playing complementary football. You know, when you turn the ball over 4 times and then your offense scores on all 4, that's 28 points, you know, off of turnovers. That's huge. Take those 28 points away, and we've got ourselves, you know, somewhat of a football game. So if you're playing complementary football that way, then it looks good for your offense, it looks good for your defense, and then your special teams turns around and gives you one as well. So they've got to continue to play that way across the board. And this young defense, you know, listen, they fly to the ball. They're playing with a lot of aggression and a lot of speed, and they're on top of what they need to be on top of. You don't see a lot of structural mistakes within the scheme of how they play defense. And it's going to be really interesting because Andy Reid is the type of coach that he schemes your inefficiency. So if you're technically unsound in one area, if you're fundamentally unsound in one area, he will scheme to be able to beat that. And this team is structurally and technically and fundamentally sound, so it's going to be interesting, the chess match that goes on between Vic Fangio and Andy Reid, the chess match that's going to transpire between Steve Spagnuolo and Kellen Moore, and who's going to get the best of what, who prepares the best. Because, you know, at the end of the day, the game is about adjustments. And the one thing that Kansas City does really well, Andy Reid will have 2 game plans. He'll implement one in the first half. If it works, he'll stick with it. If it doesn't, he'll deviate to the next one. Steve Spagnuolo will pick his spots where he's going to come after Jalen, and he's going to apply pressure. And Jalen's got to understand when that time is, and understand that he's got to be at his best under those circumstances. So you couldn't ask for a better matchup. I didn't want Buffalo. It's going to feel so much better for them to avenge, you know, Super Bowl 57 by beating the Kansas City Chiefs in New Orleans.
If you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. Certainly the mentality that this Eagles team has adopted, I think they were all hoping for the chance to kind of right some wrongs from the past go around. The thing I loved about the way that last night played out, and I think will translate well into the Super Bowl in terms of motivation, is it was a chippy game. It was nasty at times. I think they got after it. You saw the Eagles kind of grit and might there, especially, you know, as Luvu's jumping over the line or A.J. Brown's getting in Lattimore's face. I mean, that's kind of what Philly is, and that's what you want to see as you're going to contend for a championship here. You need that extra edge against the Chiefs, I think.
Well, listen, if the Eagles, their identity is a physical football team. You know, we talked about for the first 4 weeks of the season, what is their identity offensively? What is their identity defensively? I think it's pretty well known right now that, you know, we're going to beat you in the submission on the offensive side of the ball, and defensively, you know, we can do the same. We're going to beat you up front. We're going to beat you on the back end. If you do catch a ball, we're going to punish you, and we're going to try to, you know, create turnovers. And in a lot of ways, Kansas City's defense is built that way. They try to be that way offensively, but they're more finesse on the offensive side of the ball. And the reason why I like this matchup is that I've always been taught that the way you beat finesse teams is you punch them in the mouth. You beat them. You out-physical. And that's going to put this team in a great position to actually win this game.
Down and dirty in New Orleans, and it's just around the corner here, Super Bowl 59. When we come back, we'll break down that Chiefs-Eagles matchup and how these two stack up. You're watching Road to the Big Game.
2 Super Bowl appearances in 3 years is a blessing from God, and we're grateful, and we're just trying to finish. You know, that don't happen. Guys don't get to the Super Bowl, you know, and we are very blessed, and we're just trying to make the most of it.
feels like we're supposed to be here. With the work we put in, the guys we have, the coaching staff we have, it just feels like we were supposed to do this.
Star linebacker Zach Bond, who spent most of his career with the Saints in New Orleans, now in his first season lighting it up for the Eagles. 12 total tackles, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery in that NFC Championship win. Welcome back to Road to the Big Game. We're going to be joined now by Harold Kuntz from our sister station in Kansas City. Of course, we know that this stage is a familiar one for the Chiefs, but they knock off the Bills in the AFC Championship to punch their ticket to this moment again for them, their 5th appearance in the last 6 Super Bowls. What can you say about that AFC Championship win from Kansas City?
Well, thanks for having me. And it was a game where you expected it to be close. These two teams have become rivals, even though it's now a 4-0 postseason advantage when it comes to Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. But in this rivalry game, you knew it was going to be a very close game. Came down to the wire, and Josh Allen got his opportunity. The Butker connected on the field goal to make it 32-29, and Josh Allen got the ball in his hands. But Steve Spagnuolo and that blitz scheme that he comes up with different, unique ones all the time. You've always seen cornerback blitzes, safety blitzes, but this time it was one where Trent McDuffie, free rusher, had Josh Allen perplexed from the jump, and then Dalton Kincaid, of course, had the opportunity to catch the ball, but did not. Jaden Hicks with a little bit of pressure on there. So it always comes down to what's unscouted looks, and the Chiefs gave the Bills a lot of unscouted looks to start. 3 of their first drives were touchdown drives, and used with the RPO. They just did a lot of RPO. The Bills were caught off guard with that, and then the Bills were caught off guard with the blitz schemes at the end. Of course, the Bills caught the Chiefs off guard when they just ran the football down their throats the entire third quarter and got back into the game. So it's always a great chess match between these two teams in Kansas City and Buffalo. But in the postseason, Kansas City just knows how to win. We always say it's Patrick Mahomes or playoff Patrick Mahomes or playoff Travis Kelce. Those two guys just know what to do it when it counts the most, and they just know winning. 9 straight postseason wins right now, and this team is just rolling along as they head into a Super Bowl rematch with Philadelphia.
You know, it's never without controversy, this games against, Kansas City. You get the 4th down, run that was deemed not to be a first down, the catch that wasn't a catch. There's always something that follows Kansas City. How does the organization, obviously it's in their favor, so they don't feel one way or the other. They kind of feel like, hey, the refs got it right. But on the outside, all the noise that continues to come their way about being the help that they're getting from the referees, how does that resonate in Chiefs Kingdom?
I don't think it resonates at all. And that's just in respect to your question. But those guys, they see what happens on the national networks and everything, but they don't really react to it. And even after the game, you ask some of the guys, well, what's the perception about the referees? And Chris Jones said it best afterward. He just said, well, yeah, you start to look less attractive, so some people just start to look out a different way or try to blame something or whatever the cause may be. But yes, as much as those calls, the Josh Allen 4th down run, that was something that, you could argue either way, but they stuck with the call on the field. And then, of course, the catch that wasn't a catch. Yes, the ball did hit the ground, but again, it wasn't inconclusive evidence there, at least from what the way the referees were. And then a lot of the conversation coming into the game was, well, the last game against Houston, Clay Martin, the head referee, the Chiefs were 6-0 in those games, and now, of course, 7-0. So they picked Clete Blakeman, and his record all time with the Chiefs as a head referee was 6-5. So it was about as equal as it could have possibly gotten, and the calls went the Chiefs' way. And sometimes when you're winning, the calls tend to go your way. Let's just, be real. When you played the game before, sometimes when you're winning, things just roll your way. But again, it really came down to the fact that Buffalo had a chance to win, and they didn't. So when it comes to the national perception, I'm sure it's Chiefs versus everybody, but it always just fuels more mentality. And I think the best way you can put it is Patrick Mahomes on Twitter putting a little Kermit the Frog with the sip of tea at the end. He knows. They see it, but it also fuels their fire more. So for any team competing against the Kansas City Chiefs, I always tell them, be as nice as you could possibly be respectful, tell your fan base to be respectful so they have no ammunition, because they always seem to take everything that is said against them and put it against them. Like when they beat Baltimore last year, they said nobody believed in us. Well, here's the problem. Everybody does believe in the Chiefs. They just don't want to believe in the Chiefs sometimes. And when it comes to it, they hear all this stuff. They hear all this, outside noise, and they say as much as they block it out, they hear it. but all it does is motivate them. And when they're motivated more, it makes them play a lot harder too. So my suggestion is try not to, pick on the big boy, if you will, pick on the big guy at home. So because they hear it and it does motivate them.
I don't think Eagles fans will give them any bulletin board material at all. I think they're going to be calm, kind, nice, poised leading up to the game. We're going to call you out right now on Road to the Big Game because Harold is a Philadelphia native covering the Chiefs. A little bit of a trader move here. However, keep in mind, however you answer this next question, very important for whether or not you're allowed to come home. Do the Eagles have a shot against the Chiefs trying to end that three-peat dream, NFL history? Can they avenge that Super Bowl 57 loss here in Super Bowl 59? Remember, your mom may be watching.
Well, here's the deal. It's my dad's side of the family that's really still in Philadelphia area, Camden and all those places, some in Northwest Philadelphia. So yes, I do come back to Philadelphia often, but they'll always have a home for me, and I just realized that I've just seen this Chiefs team enough. As I was telling you guys before we started, my first day here was the first of the 7 straight AFC Championship games they've been to. They know how to win these things. I've only seen them in the postseason really fall apart once, and that was the AFC Championship game against the Cincinnati Bengals, where the second half they just kind of just lost their mojo. But I would not be surprised if we're seeing a three-peat here. Andy Reid's record after a bye is almost as immaculate as it gets. It's one of the best. You're looking at a guy that's on the Mount Rushmore of coaches. He skips no turn in preparation. Patrick Mahomes after the game said that, yeah, we'll celebrate tonight, but we know Andy Reid's probably going to be here at 4 a.m. in the morning, already preparing in Philadelphia, and we already can't wait for them to say during the middle of the week that we're knee-deep in preparation for the Philadelphia Eagles, and of course, time's yours, as Seth probably knows. So it's just a matter of the level of detail, and they've taken it as a challenge whenever they face great running backs, whether it be Derrick Henry, the Bills, who had a great rushing attack too under James Cook. They take it as a challenge when they have to face a great running back. And I believe that this defensive line, who's going up against a very good offensive line for the Philadelphia Eagles, I believe when you look at some of the units, I think the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line is better than the Chiefs offensive line, which is saying a lot because the Chiefs offensive line has 3 guys who are all pro. So I think this Eagles offensive line and Saquon Barkley is really a great challenge. That's where it's going to be won. The game's going to be won in the trenches, but they somehow need to find a play. And until I see a team that can take out the Kansas City Chiefs in the postseason with the way they're playing right now, I have to go with the Kansas City Chiefs. As much as it pains me to say that, I have to go with the Kansas City Chiefs in this one until I see someone pull it off.
All right, take his SEPTA pass. You're not welcome back in the city. But Harold Coons, thank you for joining us on A Road to the Big Game. When we come back, we'll talk to Jason Logan about the odds.
The biggest thing is we got to go finish the job and got to go out there and win. But I'm just so happy that the guys went out there and played their game today. And, we played together.
for the city. You know, we got one more, and then it'll be an even bigger party.
A big party and some big money on the line. Welcome back. We're going to be joined now by Jason Logan from Covers.com. Last week we talked about what this NFC Championship would look like, a 32-point win for the Eagles. What did you see from that performance?
Yeah, I mean, right out of the blocks, they punched Washington in the mouth, and the Commanders were reeling right after that Saquon Barkley run. But what stood out to me was Jalen Hurts. While he didn't have a giant game, his knee was good. He stripped off the brace. And that tush push, that short yardage situation, it was there and it was lethal and it was dominant. And that's what they're going to need to compete with Kansas City in the Super Bowl. So good to see Jalen Hurts back in the mix of that running game, being the anchor on those short yardage situations. And now he has 2 weeks to rest up. I see a big game on the ground from him against Kansas City.
Jason, you got to realize, man, in Philadelphia, 20 for 28, 243 yards, 1 passing touchdowns, and 3 rushing touchdowns. He had a big game, my friend. That's a big game. Where does the spread sit at the moment for the Super Bowl?
Yeah, so right now it opened around Kansas City -1, -1.5, and the early movement has been towards Kansas City. We're seeing them as high as -2. If you look at the money line price right now, Kansas City -130 gives them about a 56.5% implied win probability, and Philly +110 giving them about a 48% chance. So that's what the odds tell you right now.
You're seeing some intrigue on Super Bowl MVP, one of those kind of side bets you can make.
Yeah, MVP is one of the more popular props that you can bet for Super Bowl time, and it's a great way to kind of squeeze a little extra value out of the odds. If you like Kansas City, why bet the -130 to win outright when you could take Mahomes to win MVP, knowing he's probably going to win another MVP if Kansas City gets there, and that's +105. But the unique story here for the Eagles is Saquon Barkley +250. He's the second choice on the MVP odds. It's been a long, long time, and I've been in this industry for 20 years. I can't remember a running back being this high in the MVP market.
All right, he is Jason Logan from Covers.com. We'll get our final thoughts when we come back. You're watching Road to the Big Game.
Saquon's 60-plus yard run. Love it. Kind of set the motion for the rest of the game.
They don't give me a vote for MVP, but I know who my vote would. That's probably why they don't give me a vote, because I would vote for Saquon.
The MVP chants were loud inside the link after that NFC Championship win. Saquon, 3 touchdowns. He'll be key in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. But what does Philadelphia need to do to come away with a win in Super Bowl 59?
Well, I think if they just be themselves and continue to do what they've done all season long, nobody's been able to stop this rushing attack on the offense, come out and run the football. play action off of it, get Jalen involved. And on the defensive side of the ball, the Eagles defense is ranked #1 in the National Football League. They are primed and in the right position to be able to dominate the football game against Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes.
And certainly coming off 4 turnovers against the Commanders in that title game. When you look at this rematch, you mentioned at the beginning, you got to beat the best to be the best. Do you like the matchup against Kansas City here for a Super Bowl?
I love the matchup. Not only do I love the matchup that is, the Kansas City Chiefs against the Eagles, their offense against our defense, their defense against our offense, and special teams wise, I think that this team is supremely set in the right position. And oh, by the way, it is Super Bowl 59. 59. All the symbolisms are falling into place. You got Cooper DeJean and Saquon Barkley. Both of them have birthdays on February 9th. And by the way, if you add up Saquon's number and Cooper DeJean's number, it adds up to 59.
It feels like it might be written in the stars as the Eagles head down to New Orleans to take on the Kansas City Chiefs, trying to end that three-peat. For Seth Joyner, I am Ali Barubi. Thank you for watching Road to the Big Game.